The only thing that stops profit leaking is having really efficient systems and processes. So the system being set up the way the client moves through the business is all of the places that profit can actually leak, and we are plugging those holes so that money flows right through and goes to the person that's providing the service all the time, rather than it sitting in an account waiting where we have to maybe get a debtor involved. It's not a great way of running your business because you can't actually reinvest to do anything more with your business or have a holiday.
And reinvest. Yeah, reinvest is a really good idea because that's a good term, because that's exactly what the cash flow does in the business. Cash comes in and out of the business really, really constantly. But that's a mindset shift. And the thing that I find with most of the business owners that I work with, especially the ones that are going through that, that rapid growth, is they're usually really, really good at something, and that's what they focus on, and that's where they see the results, and that's where they see the value. So they're in essence, they're like a sniper looking down the scope of a gun, and they've got laser like focus on that thing. But what they're missing, they've got to pull back and scan the field and look for threats, whatever that threat be, whether it be rising cost or late paying debtors. So what do you do to get people to shift from that sniper mode to the general mode, I suppose?
I don't actually get them to move too far out of sniper mode, to be honest, because at the end of the day, if you're really great at what you do, you staying in there makes sense. This is the business outside, but what I do get people to do is implement people in around outside what you do that are the sniper. So you doing what you do makes the business money. If you go out into here, you're no longer making money. You get an expert that's really good at accounts, emails, marketing, finance in this area, because that's not your zone of genius anyway. If you stay in here being awesome as the lender and knowing all the things you need to look at and outsource this stuff, you're going to make way more money than if you try and learn all of these things at your current pay point. And I'm going to go and learn how to become an email marketer and it takes you 2 weeks. Well, what's the point? Outsource that, get that outsourced so that that's where the money is made and you stay generating the income in
Yeah.
here.
That makes a lot of sense. I've seen a lot of examples, and once again, where you've got that business owner that's trying to step out of the business. They're trying to get a manager in, and they come to us looking for funding, and we're going through the last few years, and we say, well, the business was doing quite good, but then what happened at this point here where things had fallen off, and occasionally that story is, well, we got a general manager or a CEO in place, and we gave it a red hot go for about 12 months, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and then we had to let them go. So now we've stepped back into the business, and the business is back up on that trend. That's a common story. How, is there something that your client that's growing and trying to do the right thing and step out of the business can protect themselves against that sort of?
So again, it comes down to systems and processes, and it comes down to who owns what part of the business and who owns what part of the journey. So I see that too, where people say, "Oh, I got a really common one for me is I got an operations manager. So
Yeah.
that ops manager is now doing all the work. Awesome, I can sit back here and do a thing." And they put their feet up and they stop keeping their eye on the business. But at the end of the day, the business is still your business. And if you knew how it was running, this person doesn't just take over and you let them go. They take over, but it's direct. So you know exactly what they've got to do. You know exactly how they're going to do it. There's communications all the time about how that role is actually moving forward. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they put someone in a position like that and then they just hands off. Or the other problem that happens is they micromanage, and then that person quits because they micromanage too much. So it is a fine dance, but you can't put somebody on and say, well, there you go, do it. Or do what? They're going to go rogue and they will do it exactly how they think it should be done, and then they'll train the next person to do it the way they did because no one gave them direction. And profit leaks. At the end of the day, it all comes back to money, and then they're frustrated because it's not working. So yeah, it is a hard one. So with the range of businesses that you work with, and you work with lots of different people, farms and beehives, are there any particular industries or niches that you're specifically passionate about helping?
I can't help but have a special appeal or love for a business where there is something that I can see, feel, and touch, especially if it's a brand or a product that I'm familiar with. I mean, it brings you that little bit closer to it. So, service businesses are amazing, but once again, it's invisible. Like it's still a product, but it's a service. Whereas when you've got a retailer, or a wholesaler, or a manufacturer, and you can see the journey of it and all the different parts, that's just yeah, that's just a little bit more fun. But those businesses also have not a unique, but quite often their set of problems is that cash flow cycle where we can help quite a lot. So an importer is paying 50% of an order to get it on the ship, and then it spends 3 months on the water, and then it lands, and then it takes a few weeks to get off the dock. But as soon as it lands, they've got to pay the 100%, and then it takes a month to find a customer, and then their customers pay 2 months end of month, and you've got this big cash flow gap. So being able to help businesses solve that problem is quite fun.
Yeah, I was talking to a company that have a day spa in the Blue Mountains, and they're wanting to actually grow and sell in the next 18 months ish. And so that she's really focused on her social media at the moment, which is amazing because that's going to be a really good asset for her company, if like they've got this great growth. But I think it's interesting that businesses like yours, Matt, are involved in that because they have to have the cash to keep investing in this business right up into the point that they exit. Do you have things that you love to do in that arena?
Look, I just love seeing a good business. One of the easiest deals I've ever done was, it's a really niche business, so I won't give away too many details about the business, but I'll just say that the ratio between sales to expenses was just so good. Like I'm talking 50% gross profit. So that means if the business was turning over 2 mil, that was $1 million profit. Like the expenses and everything was just so low. But this is an example of a really mature business. This is an example of a business that's found a niche in the market. It's got no competition. He'd been running that business for circa 20 years, and there was no debt in the business aside from a few cars because he was a car enthusiast. But then we ended up buying the premises, and that put a chunk of debt in there. But it was just a beautiful business. And I'm looking at these numbers and going like, this can't be real. This like seems too good to be true, but it was just a good operator who really knew what he was doing. And honestly, aside from the staff, it was a one-man operation. So I just love getting under the hood.
Absolutely.